Wait. Hello?
We taking all this over to the chapel? We're just packing.
We won't be filming that.
Bring them.
You okay?
Yeah, if you want to film it,
You need to sit down.
You found your cake? You found your cake? Really? Oh,
the thing is that some people are leaving.
beautiful. I was sad.
All team players are required on the field for service.
People don't realize it. But we're pressed on time.
Maybe.
Oh, right. That's why you said people are leaving on their own.
We want to get to the chapel and get it over. We need clothes.
Come hither.
I don't know why some people went way up on the other end.
Yeah.
Why?
She already had her pin out. Okay, is anybody else coming?
Yes, really.
Let us go. Thank you very much. This is an important announcement, as it may affect where you land after Jeff's presentation. So if somebody sits down next to you that may not have been in here, you need to tell them this. Immediately upon myself taking the mic back from Jeff and saying we will leave, we will head directly over to the chapel in the cafeteria building, to the chapel for our closing ceremonies. We will leave this room, so take all of your belongings with you and meet me at the chapel. Okay.
Should we be on time?
You will never get the chance to be out of time. We will walk over there in time. And on that note, if we could come to order. If we could come to order, please. Shh. At least they're dressed nice. Let's give them a hand. Okay. Thank you. I give my gratitude to every one of you. Just as you have thought many things and given thought to resist the direction to be on time, each one of you took personal responsibility to be on time, and so you have done. Thank you for each being part of the total outcome of this symposium. As I said on opening night, there is no us and them. We are all here together and engaged in this process which leads to progress. Pause to consider, and if you would, please close your eyes for this last part. Take a deep breath, please. Is this not how we cooperate in our spiritual life? Is this not exactly how many of us relate with our thought adjuster? As Jesus said to one of the apostles, paraphrase, you manifest your strongest resistance and stubbornness just before you give way. You attain willing cooperation with what you need to do in life and with God, perhaps as a result of conquering this natural human resistance. Thank you. Waddles retired last year from Kent State University, where he taught courses in philosophy and religion. He hosts a study group for leaders and teachers and an internet gospel school. Oxford Unity Press published his first book titled The Golden Rule. His forthcoming book is titled Values and Virtues. He has a website with questions on all 196 papers and various studies on the book. His new blog is anewphilosophyofliving.com. A New Philosophy of Living, all one.com. With the presentation entitled Meanings of In-Depth Study of the Urantia Book, please welcome Jeff Waddles.
Hello, hello. I don't know what you say. Selamat jalan, I say. Selamat tinggal. Can you all see clearly in the back? All right. After the introduction to the Universal Father, I call it the handshake sentence, we had the first lesson on thinking. First, think. Now, when we get to the mansion world, we'll be in schools of thinking, feeling, and doing. And those correlate with the dimensions of our new philosophy of living: truth, beauty, and goodness. It's already a little explanation of unfolding of the balance involved in in-depth study. Now, I want you to think of this sequence. First, think of God as a creator, then as a controller, and last as an infinite upholder. Just close your eyes or keep them open, but take a quiet minute to think. Write if you like, but take a quiet minute to think. What's the meaning of this sequence? Thank you. Sometimes you hear the word, oh, the heart, as though it was always wonderful, what comes forth from the heart. And sometimes people put down the intellect, as though that's ego and that's all the unbeautifulness. Well, we just have some balancing quotes here. Can you read this in the back? In-depth study is with your life, not only with your mind. God-knowing creatures have only one supreme ambition, only one all-consuming desire, and that is to become as they are in their spheres, like He is in His paradise sphere of paradise perfection, and in His universal sphere of righteous supremacy. That we can do in this life, can we not? Are we going for it? With every fiber of our being, are we going for it?
Yes.
Let's go for it.
We put our affirmation in the present tense, don't we now? We don't use the future tense. When we make a fresh decision like that, we put it present tense. Now sometimes we get so enthusiastic. We can confuse the gospel with the Urantia book itself. There is a beautiful, beautiful, creative, dynamic tension between the wisdom of the sequence of teaching and the call to generate thousands of study groups. In liaison with God, nothing is impossible. That is to say, we can honor the revealed sequence about teaching and accomplish our mission. And as we learn to do this, we will not see a tension, but a gorgeous, reinforcing complementarity.
quote, Jesus was never in a hurry.
What is a concept? My favorite example is this one, when Jesus spent 3 years of struggle between his personal convictions of truth and righteousness and the duty to honor his parents. I'm not going to give you time to read this whole thing. I think you remember? Do we remember?
Yes.
But now we get here. Jesus achieved the satisfaction of effecting an increasingly harmonious blending of personal convictions and family obligations into a masterful concept. Look what it took to come up with a concept. It's not just intellectual. Of group solidarity. What a striking name for it. Based upon loyalty, fairness, tolerance, and love. He had to develop 4 virtues to get that concept. And he did other deliberate concept building as well. Look at the introduction to paper 196. Look at the second paragraph about as Jesus puts together his concept of God. And on the next page, look at how Jesus puts together his concept of the kingdom of heaven. He does deliberate, spiritual, intellectual, synthetic work. It's not just, oh, some intellectual idea on a page. You know, what's the next page? And those are years of struggle. After you struggle with some of them, then you don't have to spend 3 years of struggle with every one of them. But you big ones. Don't we, sister? Yes, we do. All right, now I've saved most of my time for 3 sentences that I want to work on with you. We'll see how our time goes with these. But this is a particular technique of working with difficulties in the study of the book. So in-depth study, I'm going to give you just one technique here, but I'm going to give you some increasingly challenging examples. You've got a series here, and the way to deal with this series is find the core. Well, where's the simplest? I propose to you that just the physical is maybe the simplest place to begin here. The physical. Remember that gorgeous video we had about gratitude for the wonders of life? I mean, we're inundated by the physical. It looks so good, and oh, there's beauty. Now, I wish to understand, to express that I think all the dimensions here were present there, but they went by so fast. When I teach aesthetics, people aren't very good at, all right, but it's not just the physical. How beautiful is this physical? Whatever it is that attracts us on an immediate sensory pleasure level, we say, oh, that's beautiful. We're not quite there yet. If you will, it's a level of beauty, immediate pleasure and some sensation. But harmony is a harmony of contrasts. And if you articulate the contrast, if you do the intellectual work, we are lazy. We don't like to do the intellectual work. If you do the intellectual work to articulate the concept, the contrast, and try to say something about why it is that they are harmonious, then you're at the second level of the nested sequence of thoughts that are here. And we say, oh, the harmony. And we're likely to say, well, there's the beauty right there. And we've come a long ways. Have we not? How often do we articulate the contrasts? How often do we get that far? Not very often. Oh, it's hard with my aesthetic students. I tell you, it's hard. But there's more. The beauty of the harmony. That's a third level. If you find that intellectual harmony of contrasts, and then open yourself and think that beauty is even beyond that, and then allow that to dawn. That's divine beauty. And then, I'm not going to discourse about the Supreme, but I'm saying to you that if you read that sentence aright, reconstructing and building back and opening up, right, that's the warm-up. That was the easy one. And this is the introduction to a much harder one. The golden rule can only be comprehended by living it. I know whereof I speak. And I'm just beginning to break through. And what is the breaking through? The living interpretation of the Spirit of Truth, who directs the loving contact of one human being with another. Now, when we're living at our best, we know what that's like. We have little stretches of time in our experience, longer or shorter, when it's happening. The love is happening. And at those moments, the Spirit of Truth is directing the loving contact. So brothers and sisters, claim it. Yes, our discernment is imperfect. But if we don't claim it, we won't advance to that next level of discernment where we'll get better at discerning. And now we're really ready for the tough sentence. The highest realization and the truest interpretation of the Golden Rule consists in the consciousness of the Spirit of the truth of the enduring and living reality of such a divine declaration. And how many of you have looked at that and just kind of held your head in your hands and say, oh, I hope my study group doesn't ask that one. Now you're already ready for this part, and maybe some of you have experienced that. Because there is a love. All right, where's Margot? Margot, the first time I ran into Margot when we were here, we just caught eyes. We were fairly close together, and it was just like, it was like looking into somebody's thought adjuster. It was just awesome. There was nothing integrated about it. It was just as spiritual a look from human being to human being as I can recall. But love is more than only that. And becoming like God is not the same as becoming spiritual. Because if you read through paper 1, you see God is active on all these dimensions of reality. And we've got to, if we're going to work them all. And when you're not at a nice conference having a great time, oh, this nice conversations, and I'm falling in love with this person, and oh, discovering that, oh, another layer of... Then you have to live with a person's imperfections. And those imperfections impact you. And you're kind of, or a value that you care about is being not handled the way you would like it to be handled. And that's where the love, if we are attuned and aligned, becomes mercy. It's a way of interpreting. We look at those things mercifully instead of, you know, the more, I mean, how often do we not do that? Okay? But we can do that. And that's part of the momentum of ministry. That's the, you know, that's the... And when that faith is up, and when we're going, we can just... We don't conceal from our eyes that which needs ministry. We don't refuse to notice it. We don't pretend that the other person is so beautiful, or that the world's, oh, look at how beautiful our planet is. Oh, it's all so beautiful. Because we've got to live as empirical beings in a very, you know, it's a dark world, and that darkness has some... Okay, so now let's look at this. How are we going to put this one together? I propose to you, and there are other ways to look at this, but I'm going to propose to you that this divine declaration, the golden rule, is a divine declaration. That's the core. Now, what's the enduring and living reality of such a divine declaration? As we start to open that question, new realizations begin to dawn. The enduring, living reality of the divine declaration. Relate with others as you want others to relate with you. Oh, it starts to... And then, the truth of the enduring and living reality. And that truth has a fragrance. It has a flavor, a savor, a spirit. Page 42. We're not talking spirit of truth with a capital S, but immediately here just the flavor of that truth. But that flavor, next look, is the spirit of truth. And then the consciousness of the spirit of the truth. Are you with me?
Yes. Yes.
Congratulations. All right, fasten your seatbelts. We're going to 35,000 feet. We got to prepare this one again, because it's not just a grammatical trick. It's about bringing understanding to the interpretation of one of these. Drives my translator wife crazy with all the of clauses stacked up. Now here I've got to read the quote for you. It's from 2094. There are just three elements in universal reality: fact, idea, and relation. The religious consciousness identifies these realities as science, philosophy, and truth. Philosophy would be inclined to view these activities as reason, wisdom, and faith. Physical reality, intellectual reality, and spiritual reality. We are in the habit of designating these realities as thing, meaning, and value. Now, the striking thing that I wish to bring forth is how it is that reason and physical... I'm just going to take a bit of this here to comment. Reason and physical reality are identified. Wisdom and intellectual reality, or idea and faith and spiritual reality, identified. The way our mind normally thinks is we've got, and it's true enough, it's not false, but we've got the act of consciousness, the activity of the mind, and then there's the reality field, sort of out there somewhere, and we hope that the activity is, interprets well enough to get the meaning. It's the way we, most of the time, think about stuff. Now watch how intimate is the relation that we're about to see. Here's my, toughest quote. Come on. There we go. Now, religion is a profoundly deep and actual experience of spiritual communion with the spirit influence resident within the human mind. And as far as such an experience is definable in terms of psychology, it is simply the experience of experiencing the reality of believing in God as the reality of such a purely personal experience. Anyone ever been in a study group where people have laughed at that sentence? I have, yeah. It's understandable, especially this word simply. All right, so you look down. Now, I couldn't get this onto a PowerPoint slide, but I think there's a way of unpacking this that will get us there in a stunning way. I choose as my core the phrase believing in God. Please anchor with me there. Believing in God. We understand what that means. And this is one of those places in the text where if we say, oh, belief and faith, or this is not a passage where you play that card. Belief and faith are not in that way differentiated for our purposes here. All right? There's our core. Where's number 2? Okay. Can't do all this at once here. The reality of believing in God. There we are. The reality of believing in God. Now this matter, what's the reality of believing in God? You know, as I teach philosophy, and some of it is philosophy of religion. And well, you know, there's this belief, but how do we know that our belief really intersects? You know, I mean, this idea of the beyond. And how do you, I mean, those questions are totally understandable, are they not? They are so natural to the human mind. What is the reality of this? Am I just kind of... What is the reality? Do we need to look beyond the mind to validate belief from outside? That's what that question implies. The answer is no. No. It's not even so intimate as the identity in a philosophical sense, not a mathematical sense, in a philosophical, not reason but logic. In a philosophical sense, if you read the greats on this topic, they understand the kind of identity between, say, reason and physical reality. Talk about that more if there's time, which there isn't. No, it's this believing, this faith is the product of the work of the thought adjuster, and more than only the thought adjuster. You don't go outside. It's so intimately in there. So now we've got a meaningful, the reality of believing in God. That really makes sense to us now, does it not? Okay, where's 3? As the reality of such a purely personal experience. Usually you say purely personal experience, that means I'm very subjective, I don't know if it really connects with anything, but that's not the case here. So we've got 3 of these phrases now, have we not? Quite meaningful to us? Okay, let's go for more, we're on a roll. Now experiencing the reality of all this, that's what I'm calling, and other philosophers would do this differently. I'm sure there are many ways to make sense of this sentence. But what I'm offering you is that this is the synthesis. This is where you're putting these dimensions together. You're realizing what's going on. Ooh, you know, we've got this intimate presence of God in the very act of believing itself. And that's the reality that I would normally ask for if I were using my freshman philosophy course mind to approach this. All right, now last, having made this synthesis, we are ready to look